This is my speech. I've got some people here and then family members, girlfriend, and I have it recorded. Okay. We live in a world of ever-increasing surveillance. Every storefront adorned with security cameras, every website a point of personal data collection, and every person equipped with a cell phone camera connected to global telecom networks. If there's anything that's true about the 21st century, it's that we're more visible than ever. But French philosopher Michel Foucault tells us that visibility is a trap. What does he mean by this? How are we to make sense of it? Well, we can use his theory of Panopticism. But before we can talk about Panopticism, we need to go back and talk about the Panopticon, which is where the theory gets its inspiration from. The Panopticon is an architectural design for the ideal prison proposed by the English philosopher Jeremy Bentham. The word itself, Panopticon, comes from the Greek pan, meaning all, and optes, meaning sight. In other words, all sight or all seeing. And the design is like this. Imagine you have a circular building. Along the circumference are cells, each cell divided from one another by partitioning walls. In the center is a watchtower that can be occupied by an observer. From the position of the watchtower, every cell is visible. But from the position of the cell, the watchtower is obscured. The genius of the Panopticon lies in what Bentham calls the inspection principle. That is that when the goal is inspection, the ideal is an omnipresent, constant inspection. This is not possible with Bentham's design. A guard could only ever look at one prisoner or a handful of prisoners. He can't see what's behind him. But Bentham goes on to tell us that the next best thing is that those who are to be inspected believe themselves to be under constant inspection. And this is where Foucault comes in. Foucault takes Bentham's Panopticon, the architectural design, and transforms it into a theoretical design to describe the way that surveillance can be used as an arm of social control. Foucault says that the Panopticon is a machine for dissociating the seeing and being seen dyad. In other words, it functions by obscuring the one who does the seeing. This creates an interesting scenario where the person who's watched can't know when or if they're being watched, so the only choice they have is to act as if they're under constant surveillance. It displaces the act of surveillance onto the one who's surveyed. We watch ourselves. A really good example of this is Orwell's 1984. It's a novel of Panopticism. Anyone who's read it could tell you it takes place in the fictional continent of Oceania, and it's ruled by this English socialist regime. Their source of power is an omnipresent surveillance. Big Brother is watching you. The protagonist, Winston, thinks that he can slip under the panoptic gaze undetected, but he doesn't get panopticism. He doesn't watch himself. And anyone who's read it could tell you that the consequences for Winston are tragic. But it's not just theory or fiction where the Panopticon functions. It's in real life. An example of this is undercover police officers. They drive in undescript cars, wear plain clothes, and they're out on the streets. We all know they're out there. They could be the car behind us, the person standing next to us. So we follow speed limits and stop at stop signs, and we don't shoplift, even when no one's looking. But it's a mistake to say that nobody's looking, because we're watching ourselves. That's how the Panopticon functions. So to conclude, Panopticism is a theory of surveillance. It shows how norms and behaviors can be enforced in a population by surveying them, by making them believe themselves to be watched. See if you can find Panopticons in your real life. You'd be surprised where they're hiding.
We need to be on the